Is Brenay dodging the writ of execution? I don't know. However, is the reason why we're seeing the writ of execution that was filed on May 4th now at the top of the docket on May 29th because she's dodging the writ of execution? I don't think so. I'm going to do my best to break this down. I'm going to show you the statutes that I look at and why they support my theory. And yeah, that's the best that I got for you. As always, I am a certified law nerd, bona fide non-attorney. This is not legal advice, just my interpretation of what I think is happening in the docket. Let's begin. The first thing I need to clarify is that a writ of execution is not a summons or a complaint requiring service, meaning it does not require that Brenay be served before action can be taken. Under NC General Statute 1-302, judgments in North Carolina may be enforced by execution. Under NC General Statute 1-303, executions are a process of the court and are subscribed by the clerk. In other words, the writ of execution is a directive from the clerk of court to the sheriff as an enforcement mechanism after judgment already exists. It is not an initiating pleading requiring that the debtor, in this case Brenay, be personally served before enforcement efforts can begin. Now, the litigation phase has already happened. Judgment has already been entered. The writ is the legal tool used to attempt enforcement of that judgment. Why do I keep emphasizing that? Because I'm starting to see things on the internet like they can't find her to serve her the writ of execution or she's dodging service. Again, it's not a summons, subpoena, or complaint beginning a lawsuit. It is a post-judgment enforcement mechanism directed to the sheriff. Therefore, the idea that she must first be served before any attempt at execution can occur may be inaccurate. The second thing I'm seeing is speculation that because this writ resurfaced near the top of the docket, that means a new writ had to be issued, that she is somehow, quote, on the run, or that the sheriff was unable to execute because she moved. Now, is she on the run? No idea. At this time, though, I do not believe the docket alone supports that conclusion. Under NC General Statute 1-310, executions are returnable, meaning the sheriff generally reports back to the court regarding what occurred during enforcement efforts. That return can reflect attempted levy activity, meaning attempts to seize property, property identified, amounts collected, or an inability to proceed if applicable. If the sheriff had actually attempted enforcement and was unable to execute, whether because they could not locate non-exempt property to levy or for some other reason, we would generally expect to see some type of return status, a notation, or sheriff-related activity reflected in the docket. And we have actually seen something similar before. Back in November, when the original writ activity occurred, there was a notation indicating unable to issue. That is the type of docket activity one would reasonably look for if something had prevented execution. Instead, what I'm seeing right now is the same exact writ of execution. I can tell two ways. One, the amounts have not changed. Back on May 4th, the writ of execution reflected the same exact amounts, including the same interest accrual amount. If this were a newly issued writ of execution, I would reasonably expect to see those figures updated. And second, this has the same May 4th creation date reflected in the docket. Remember, her deadline to post the $40,000 bond was on May 1st. May 4th was the following business day. There was also no alias writ listed, meaning no apparent second writ following the original. There was no pluris writ, meaning no apparent additional follow-up writ after prior writs failed to satisfy the judgment. And there is no sheriff's return, no returned unsatisfied notation, no unable to issue notation, with no newly issued writ of execution. What appears to have changed is simply that the original May 4th writ is now appearing near the top of the docket rather than where it originally appeared chronologically. And because of this, I suspect this may simply be a docket reindexing or some type of clerk-side administrative action. Something may have happened behind the scenes, the clerk may have needed to resubmit it, etc. That part is speculation, just a theory. Could have also been recategorized, reassociated, or technically updated behind the scenes in eCourts, causing it to resurface in the activity feed. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I'm not an attorney, clerk, or sheriff. I'm simply using deductive reasoning based off of what I'm actually seeing in the docket, because that's all I have to work with right now. All I see is the same May 4th writ of execution resurfacing or appearing to be reindexed at the top of the docket. But, as always, I will continue to monitor it, and I'll bring you new updates as they come along. I'll catch you in the next one.